Hello, my name is LaQuadra Offit. This is the Maroon Lady Podcast show, sponsored by Brighter Brilliance Early Learning, a future learning center. A haiku. Every ism is a problem because it is organized hatred. Hello, Marian instructors and scholars. I hope you are well in everything that you are in the process of pursuing succeeds. I go by the Maroon Lady for fun. My name is, again, LaQuadra Offit. I have taught in the early learning field for 23 years. I am currently a full-time online student of the great University of Marion University, Indianapolis, Indiana. I am glad that I came on the scene when Paths to Quality gave the very important core values and trainings to prevent isms in my early learning environments. Creating great character became my intentional approach. The learning part would be easy though, because children are very inquisitive and they're very eager to explore the why. And they would literally sit up and ask you why. For every statement that you make, why? And you better have an answer. And just have those teachable moments with them. So learning through play sets the stage for awesome strategies to prevent isms and to implement oneness in the learning environmental setting. So before I go any further, I want to address the very foundation of where the isms originated. Yes, the one group said to be loved so much that Yah, which is Hebrew for God, gave his only son for. But there are only a few that work hard to be worthy of the stripes and the piercing in his side. Which brings me to 2 Timothy 3 and 5, that people will be lovers of themselves rather than lovers of Yah. That's 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. The perilous, this we know also, that in the last day perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of themselves, covetous, boastful, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to the parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, fierce, and to those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of Yah. I call it the test of the antonyms. Read that for yourself because there were some words in there that I was like, let me keep on going. Love, light, and humor. I call it the test of the antonyms, though. The light and the dark, the good and the bad. I believe that love uses humanity to reveal the parts of the heart that speak the loudest to the light, and vice versa. Humanity created modern phobias and isms to create a power of dominance to defy Yah by spreading the purpose of life into an assortment of dysfunction and confusion. Sexism. The Merriam-Webster defines it as prejudice and discrimination based on sex, especially discrimination against women, behavior, conditions, or attitudes that foster stereotypes or social roles based on sex. And that right there is sad. Because if it's based on sex and you're coming for the very existence and the very embodiment of birthing the world, that's if it's against. Okay, anyway, I won't do that. But this is a it's a podcast show, so I can be and implement a little personality there. But that definition is wild. But have you noticed that love changes every decade? Love changes with trends, a subtle bending of the hearts and the minds, which fades into getting further away from unity. Poor love. Today, relationships are required and they involve your BBLs and hair texturism. For real. What's your hair texture? Is it too tight? Because if it's too tight, we're going to talk about you. We gonna dog you on the bus. We're going to talk about your back, your kitchen. Is it too thin? Is it blonde? Is it brunette? Seriously. Colorism. Do you have a tan? Seriously. It's bad. Ageism. We're not going to hire you because you're too old. I guess you're just not teachable no more. Horrible. That's just to name a few. That within itself has made me ask, yeah, so you made this in your image? Just brings a whole bunch of questions for me. But I also know that there's going to be a separation. So it's all about choice. So I know, moving forward, I know as an educator, there's only so much that you can do to encourage great characterization of children. Everything is about choice. Do you want to share? Do you want to apologize? I just don't feel like those are some of the things that you should say, well, I'll give you a choice. If you're contradicting empathy, you're contradicting the golden rule, in my opinion. It doesn't always seem to be allowed to be intentional for instructors with what's right, with teaching what's right and what's wrong. It's like being a caretaker of Pinocchio. Okay, so it's like Pinocchio's nose, it grew whenever he lied, right? He was not a real, you get it. I'm not against inclusion at all. It seems like a contradiction to me, as I mentioned before, for any group of people to feel validated, but when people's beliefs don't agree or line up with what they respect, but it seems that they want your whole body and mind to agree with their views, even if they are unreasonable or detrimental to mankind. There is no equality where there is no equal perception. A right or a wrong with confusion of rights, like the Me Too movement or My Body, My Choice. That very statement is true against physical violations, but it's to encourage, but then we encourage self-mutilation and abortion of humanity. It's just monstrous propaganda. There's an article that talks about sexual harassment by Lee B. H. 2018. Research shows that 30% of women will report sexual harassment, and only just 3% of men will report that sexual harassment. Brings me to question, is this due to victimizing silence or a fear of biases in the workplace? So as an educator, I am listening very closely to the little conversations that my children are having, because some of these things start on YouTube, some of these things start on TikTok, in their little peer groups. So the first sign of cliques forming, I like to rotate my small groups. I like to rotate my centers. If I see peer isolation, I have to be in a position to prevent little environmental wars. Classism. Merriam-Webster defined classism as a belief that a person's social or economic station in society determines their values in that society. I wonder when manners became such a wimpy and weak form of lower values. I thought that the golden rule shaped the world. I mean, really think of that. I mean, it's not convenient until it's about that person, right? It brings us back to that scripture, 2 Timothy 3:1-5. It's all about self, but it shouldn't be if the golden rule shaped the world, right? Well, without it, seriously, as an educator, I have heard parents secretly telling their child to fight in self-defense, to not even seek a solution or even teaching problem solving. So now these children are being jumped on bus stops or just retaliating or afraid to go to school. If it's not them being afraid to go to school, it's in their home, with a parent struggling with substance abuse, child getting beaten over bills, and that brings us to poverty. That brings us to talking about living environments and so the society that they live around, the community. What is the community like? What does the community believe? Are there leaders? Do we have villages anymore? Nope. No. This is where classism is perpetuated in the lower levels of poverty. Is everybody ghetto? I mean, does everybody talk black? Does everybody talk white? Only reason why I bring that up is because I literally experienced that in high school. You know, I went to school out south, and I heard other kids saying to the white kids, "You talking black." Then I went to school out north, and they would tell me that I speak white. Is there literally a way of defining a person based on the way they speak? No, there isn't. That's why I implement art, because art can be interpreted in any way that that person sees fit, or that child, to embrace that and to own it. It is who you are. So breaking those barriers through those things that I implement in my classroom. Location seems to be a direct target of compartmentalizing children based on the biases. This can happen with teachers. This can happen with students. So according to this article, understanding the psychological impact of poverty and inequality, it would seem not having a sense of balance is harmful for children. You know, it is important for children to have routine and schedule, because children are very sensitive to the smallest forms of stress. How can you learn when you don't feel safe in your learning environment? If I were in an environment and I knew that my teacher was going to put out a fire where, you know, I was being excluded from a group, that is showing me that there is a level of fairness, and there is a level of take charge, and this person is in leadership. They're going to this teacher's being a model of leadership, and then she's modeling what's right and what's wrong. That is going to move about the environment and is going to affect and evoke change in the classroom, in the school, in the community, and so on and so forth. According to the article, we said that it is important for them to have schedules, routines. Yes. Heck, even the adults need to know when it's time to go, when they are done with the workday. One of the biggest helpful parts for children is assisting them with regulating their emotions. So when they're in their learning environments, they know how to gauge their feelings with their challenges so that they can get through hard things, difficult things, so that they know that they can do hard things. They can face it. Racism. The Merriam-Webster defines racism as a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherited superiority over a particular race. Sadly, everything began with a plot to separate humanity, and this all began in the Garden of Eden, to even Cain and Abel. Humanity is a race that Yah created to be separate from animals. We can talk, they can't. And we are also set apart in other ways. But this is what we're talking about, racism. Sadly, the major rise to the challenge of human jaguars and hyenas, lions and tigers and bears, has evolved into many forms of power, from politics to AI technology. The very nature and healthy development of children has become dictated by systems and customs that don't consider the future of mankind. All of this begins in early childhood. All of this begins in the classroom. Well, as we talk about racism, though, it is a crippling tool that's used in the masses to side with hatred rather than hating the things that spread darkness to the deepest, darkest origins of hell. That's what I'm going to say. We can just sum it up. We can sum the isms up as to what they are. They are 1 Peter 5 and 8, a roaring lion seeking to devour. 1 Peter 5 and 8 says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, Hashatime, which is Hebrew for devil, as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. So whatever entertains you, trains you. Some of these strategies here that I create for my learning environments. First, understand that fear is a solution of action that cripples the outcome that will affect our change. That is, first, I know fear, and I have to recognize what it is. And I deal with that so that I can approach it correctly, with the right approach, with the right training, with the right theories. So creating experience for children to face challenges of interacting outside of their comfort zones, I create a learning environment of empathy as well as resilience with a knowledge of self-regulated restraint. I believe that everything should have balance. Balance first. If without a foundation, there is no balance. So the Most High is the balance, and we don't have that in our schools. So that's why there's chaos. Imagine an educator approaching her classroom like a recipe with the Most High, multiculturalism, nationalism, internationalism, and every application of her classroom. I mean, there's more to it than that. There's creativity, there's psychology, there are the theorists. There's so much to bring to the classroom to make it rich, to make it effective, to make it successful. I have learned that early learning education should be very intentional. One strategy that I would also implement is a layout of having art walls, family walls, neighborhoods, famous people, famous landmarks. This creates unity. This creates mass identity. A second strategy, how it would change the learned behaviors, is by conditioning how these differences are perceived by the children. I could even use music. How does that music make you feel? They can draw how that music makes them feel. I can implement food, healthy food, and having an understanding about food, just sharing and having them share amongst themselves so that they can respect their peers, so that they can value their peers, value differences, asking how things make them feel, asking them to draw how it make them feel, dancing it out, brings connection. In conclusion, in these social connections, it can become very amazing to observe. It is truly rewarding when my kiddos are thrilled to be friends with a child that have different cultures, or they even respect their cultures and races and say, oh no, little Eric doesn't eat meat. Or I've heard it, so cute. Or if lunch is being provided and the kid's like, well, Samantha doesn't drink milk, or get another name. Jeremiah he can't have milk. It hurts his tummy. It's so sweet. But this is them respecting their, the needs and their peers around them. But understanding cultures are different, races are different, learning abilities are different. Children have a natural nature of empathy. I've observed if there is a room full of babies and one baby cries, they all cry. And feeling a connection of sympathy and empathy. This empathy only needs to be modeled and taught with intentionality and consistency. If we can shape one classroom, we may be able to shape the world.